This is your chance.
Start.
Go on, David. Red looks good on you.
Oh dear. I said, let's not. Yeah. Let's have a night.
Good to start.
There is not, will not do it.
Good evening. And oh, that's nice of you. Welcome to this meeting of Woodley Town Council's Strategy and Resources Committee, being held on the 16th of December 2025. Woodley Town Council meetings are now recorded, with recordings streamed live and stored on the Town Council's YouTube channel. By virtue of attending the meeting, you consent to having your image and audio recorded for this purpose. If you do not wish for your image and audio to be recorded, then please do not stay for the meeting. For those in attendance, we're not expecting a fire drill tonight, so if you hear the fire alarm, please head to the nearest fire exit and congregate at the fire assembly point by the Oakwood Centre at the front of Woodford Park. So, do we have any apologies?
Yeah, we have apologies from Councillor Charles Bay.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Nope. So the next item, Investment Subcommittee about the Treasury Management Strategy. I'm going to ask the Chair to introduce it. As I said in my email to all of you, no, the Chair of the Investments.
That'd be me.
Thank you for picking me up. No, that's fine. As I said in my email, hopefully we'll be able to move quickly on to the budget, because every minute we spend on the Treasury Management changes is 1 minute less on the budget. So, Julia?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'd like to introduce this piece of the agenda. We met last week on the 8th of December to discuss the Treasury Management Strategy for 26-27. It's a new format that we had presented to us, and I present the paper to you that starts on page 3 and ends on page 15, I believe. 14. We hope that this is fairly self-explanatory and that you've had an opportunity to read it. As the Chair said, we do need to make some decisions around this. We need to consider the following recommendation, which we discussed at the meeting, and whether this updated strategy is for adoption or not for adoption, and where we sit on that risk register. Thank you, Chair.
Right. One of the key items I want to draw your attention to is on page. Where is it? What pages of general reserves? 8. No, there's a table.
In the Treasury Management Report, is that what you're
So, don't tell me that's disappeared since the meeting. I hope not. No, there's no table. That's disappointing. So that what's being presented to us is a slight amendment.
no,
Is it? You know what?
Or page 14 on there, but page 10 of that is this. So it's
The colour one.
Right. Okay.
14.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
there's the figures in the text.
On page 14, which is the most critical thing, because it does have an impact on the budget. What this is all about is just looking at expenditure, looking at generally and income, and trying to identify whether they're a high risk or a low risk. So, for instance, the income coming from the precept you would consider to be pretty low as a risk of not coming in. The income from users of Woodford Park Leisure Centre is probably medium to high, or possibly, because you can't guarantee that those users are going to continue. So this is the big change on the reserves, on the treasury management. And we've lost, there was a figure in there of 4.5 months, which I can't.
Yeah, so it's the stratification of risk we're being asked to
Oh,
consider
yes, sorry.
here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't it?
You'll see at the bottom, 4.5 months net expenditure is 559,221. Okay. All the data that I sent out to you was based on that figure. We need to decide, and maybe we do it, come back at the end after we've done the budget, whether we want to go for a 4.5 months or a 6 month, or the midpoint, which is the 652. Bear in mind that's an extra £100,000. That's equivalent to an extra 2% on the precept. And when we go through the budget, there's going to have to be potentially a large increase already. Do you want to saddle that? Since we haven't had for a 652,424 level for a long time. So with that caveat, that we'll come back and revisit this at the end of the budget meeting, because I think it is tied in there. Can I have approval for the treasury management strategy with that caveat? All those in favour, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Right?
6, 4.
Yes, I'm going to vote.
Yeah. Are those against?
None against.
Abstain?
1 abstention.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Right. So now we're going to get to the budget precept item 4. Before I hand it over to you, I just want to, you've all been sent the graphs. Apologies, I had intended for you to get them way before now, but the task was a little bit more complex than I expected. So if I can get you to bring up the income over expenditure, the income over expenditure slide.
1 second, I'll vote now.
New technology, it's going to come up on the screen.
Right.
This, when it comes up, is graphing income, expenditure, precept from the period 2006-7 to the 26-27 budget and all the years in between when it comes up.
I'll be able to enlarge it when we get to that.
It's a chart. It's got, it should say something like income over expenditure.
Different tab, wasn't it? Just go into.
There we go.
There we go.
Right. Okay. So just to talk it through, the bottom line, you've got it, copies I've given out.
Yep.
The bottom line is income. I see a bit of a dip where the COVID was and it's come back up. The green line is the precept. Okay. The red line, oh, sorry, yeah, it's red there, but it's orange on mine.
Is that yellow?
Yellow
Yeah.
is the expenditure. The dotted line is the total income, i.e. precept plus income. And you can see we were in pretty good state to around about 2020, 2021, where we were actually covering our expenditure through our income. Hit COVID, but we then did come back again, as you'll see, not in excess, but tracking it. And it's only really probably around about 23, 24 that we get this massive divergence. And it's quite clear here, and you'll see it on another slide, the expenses one. It's expenses shooting up. And I've got some various slides which will tell you, indicate some of the major reasons there. Precept has been pretty level, which is what we've been doing, keeping it virtually the same. Income has grown, but not as much, but it's that expenditure line. So if you can now give me, let's see, The next one I'll have a look at is, I think it's going to be. Can you do the staff one, please? It should be called staff. So the next one is, this is staff. Staff costs. That includes NI, superannuation, and payroll. So you will see, again, the yellow line is superannuation, pension. The bottom blue line is national insurance. A slight uptick because of the government, but not much. But the top one is salaries. And you can see it's going up significantly over the last 3 or 4 years. This is something that contributes to the situation, I believe, to the situation we're in at the moment. Can you do energy as well? So another key thing, there's lots of contributors to the expenses, but these are the sort of key ones. If you look at the energy, well, we all know from our own household, energy is going through the roof, and look at that. Put those two together, and you can see why we're not in a very healthy state. They're two key contributors to what's going on. So, if I can then ask you, extra income, this one. I did a little bit of pseudo modelling, if you want to call it that way. Extra income. So if you look at the extra income one, what I wanted to find out is when you look at our general reserves, which is the added income, sorry. There we go. All right. The purple line that's starting off at 208, coming all the way down, that needs to be adjusted to about 221, because I heard tonight that there's that had included 116K's worth of and returned VAT. That was the data that was provided to us 2 weeks ago. It's actually 95. That's a 21 difference. So actually you're starting at nearly 230,000 deficit. Okay, which would have to come out of reserves, and then that means we go below what we were talking about earlier about what is the minimum reserves so you can see how it ties in.
That takes us below 3 months, doesn't it, Chair?
Yeah. And so just talking through, the green one at the bottom with the flat line, that's potential extra income, which is set at 5%. So 5% will give us some extra income. The orange line is income growth. Sorry, the orange line is extra income from precept. So if we increase the precept by 5%, we get nearly 60,000. 7.5%, 87, etc., etc. Okay, roughly a 5% is about 60K extra income. The blue line, you see those two added together. And what I did was, with that extra income line, at what point does it effectively remove that 208,000? So in other words, what extra income do we need to have to avoid taking 208,000 from general reserves? And that point is actually 13.3%, the bottom one there. So we would have to increase the precept, bearing in mind the income is 5%, because it's much more difficult to improve on income because it's not a captive audience than getting precepts. So it's 13.3% to actually mean that we don't take that extra 208 or 220 from the reserves. Hopefully that was clear. Right. The other one.
Sorry, so how much is 13.3% in money on our little precept?
155,000 across 1,000. roughly 1,000 people or bandees. So it's 100, so
how much would it cost each bandee? That's what I'm saying.
We can tell you that in a.
It increases from this year from 106.69 to 120, 85, 86-ish, something like that.
okay, so that's a £14, so it's £1 and bit.
So about £1.19 a
You
month.
could argue that's diddly squat, you know, and maybe collectively that's what we'll say. But I'm just putting the data in front of you. No, don't be sorry. Just very quickly, losses and facilities. Bar chart.
Okay. That one?
Yeah, losses on facilities, right? Basically, and this is going back 5 years. Basically, we don't make a profit on any of our facilities. The big peak there was COVID when we got furlough income and various other bits and pieces, which were allocated mainly to Woodford Park because that was where we did most of the furlough. But the bottom line is we've never made them, with the exception of Coronation Hall and Chapel Hall, they pretty well made a small profit between 5 and 10,000, maybe a little bit more than that every year. But the big ones, Oakwood Centre, Woodford Park Leisure Centre, allotments, it is actually graded maximum to minimum. This isn't new, it's always been this case, okay? It's always been loss making. Yes, June?
Is that a problem though? Because.
No, it isn't, it doesn't have to be.
No,
For instance,
but if we're talking about we're a profit-making business, then actually you don't need a town council, you just get businesses to go and run profit-making things.
it's a mixture.
Yeah,
So
I'm not
for
saying we
instance,
should give everything
let me
free.
give the sport example. Sport will never make money. Football, cricket, Bowling Green will never, ever make money. However, we owe it to our residents to provide football, cricket. And what we need, part of this whole discussion will be, is there anything on there that we can say, could say, stop doing? Because that's the position we're in. Or can we be keener, like the theatre? Because we don't break out the theatre income, which we do need to do going forward. It might be, it's only good providing 1,500 a year. So why are we running a theatre? Because it's causing us a lot of cost. But that's just an example.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm just want to just make clear that the fact that it doesn't make a profit is kind of not a bad thing, because that's the whole point of having a town council where effectively, collectively, we subsidise stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's the level of loss
Yes,
that's the
and
problem.
if you didn't subsidise it, and you could actually make a living out of cricket pitches, somebody would be doing that, so we wouldn't have to.
Okay, a couple more. Expenditure on cost centres. A cost centre is something like the Woodford Park Leisure Centre, the Oakwood Centre. That's it, you got it. Again, it's the highest, this is expenditure, and you can see at the Woodford Park Leisure Centre, sorry to keep picking on you, Ed, but you're the biggest mover of numbers we've got. You can see that expenditure was held for the first 3 years of this period reasonably well, and then suddenly shot up. The Oakwood Centre has just consistently gone up and up and up and up. And that might be the right thing to do. I'm just laying out the data for you to think about when we get into the next session. And then the last one is income.
That one?
Yeah, to say, yeah. Yeah, this is the income chart. All right. So again, as I said, Woodford Park Leisure Centre is a stalwart, brilliant, and bringing a lot of income. And it's building again. The Oakwood Centre is building, but should it be building more, quicker? You know, what do we have to do to get it better? My own personal view is the theatre it hasn't been squeezed enough. I think it's underutilised. I think we can get.
Jack, can I just
Yeah.
ask what's central?
Oh, that's a central cost.
Okay.
Right, so there's you'll see it in the, if you could drill into the more big, there's a central cost, there's a corporate management cost, and then there's a democracy cost for it.
So have you done a slide with the difference? So I'm finding it quite difficult to look at this and work out what the
Yes.
loss actually is.
Yeah, I have. Sorry, there's one more then. Oh, we did the losses on facilities of income. That was the one. That one that had the bar chart.
One before.
That one. On that, I think I've said enough. I hope you found the data
That one.
interesting. I had to trawl through a lot of documents to get it. So I'll now hand it over to you. And then we do need to get into the.
Thank you, Chair. So if I can just summarise, obviously there's a lot of data you've been provided with both this evening and in the agenda and prior to the last meeting. If I can just summarise what you are being asked to do this evening, which is two things. One is to provide a target precept figure for 2026-27 budget. And if required, depending on what that precept figure is that you're looking to work towards, doesn't support the budget and the desired general reserve, then to provide guidance on areas of saving and other actions to achieve this. And just to note, it's important that you're not making the decision on the budget or the precept at this meeting. This is about providing us with guidance so that we can rework things to present back to this committee in January. So just to be clear. Sorry, I'm just trying to. Keith's covered quite a lot of what the actual report said. I think it might be worth at this point just worth discussing what the committee's initial position on potential precept increases. There's a lot of scenarios and information there that we could go into, but may not need to, depending on what that is. It might not be that you can decide that right now, but it might be, Chair, through you, worth it, canvassing those opinions before we start drilling down into things. Otherwise, we could spend quite a lot of time.
So earlier, sorry, Kay asked how much that was in physical money. Do we have that for each point that we've looked at? Do we have that 5% to 7.5?
Yeah, and we can work that through with any number you've got and want to work through and see what that looks like.
Because there's a balance, isn't there? There's a balance to be had between income generation and optics.
Yes.
And, clearly that higher end, that's a significant amount of money for people.
If you look on what I call my modelling chart,
Yeah.
if you look on the yellow line, which is extra income for precept, you'll see numbers on that line.
Yeah, but I'm asking for household. How would it affect a household? If we did 5%, 7.5, 8.7, 13.3?
Is that what's reflected on page 17? Because you've got options there with.
Are those all band D on page 17?
Yes.
Are they? Okay.
So there are some options there.
These are boundary.
The scenarios that are there on pages 16 and 17 were designed around it mentions a 5.8% precept there, which was the only number we had that was mentioned at the last meeting. So we modelled kind of from that what that might look like.
So that's the lower end.
That was the figure that was mentioned.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
But in terms of what's required,
depending
on what the approach is and essentially how much of it you wanted to do in this year as opposed to consecutive years.
Okay, but that's fine. So if we times it by 2, it's roughly, we can get a rough number in our heads.
If you go to my spreadsheet. Sorry. Because what you really want to know, what is the precept level on those? See, you shouldn't have taken it.
No, I know I've got a number of things right.
Doesn't matter, we can work it out. If this is 5.8%, I can do some
if you put.
Rough stuff in my head.
We can do anything as well on the modelling immediately, so any number you say, we can work that out immediately for you.
Just every 1% is about nine pence per month
Yeah.
to a household.
What we can do, are you able to, I think when we get to that point and you want to see what difference a percentage makes in actual money, we can run any number of
So
those.
can we just go back and be really clear what the whole is? What is the number that is the whole?
Yeah, you've got a question.
Oh, sorry.
It's a chicken and egg question, because you can't answer that until we decide what minimum reserves.
So can I just for clarity, have I got this right? My understanding is what we've got to end up with is having enough money to go into the general reserve that makes it medium risk.
Yeah.
And we'd like to have enough money to spend on all the stuff that we're spending now.
Yeah.
And the way we square that circle is through the precept. Now, we got in here, told us how much we would have to put the precept up. And income, we know how much we have to put the precept up though to sort that out if the income remains same.
Yeah.
And it was like eye-watering.
Yes.
Having said that, there's quite a lot of stuff, points in between. And I think in terms of putting increasing the precept, we have to start with 10% because that's what we said at the last meeting. You know, last year in January, we said that, or we were told that, you know, we're looking at least a
11.75
10%.
is what we said.
We've got the actual numbers now here.
Yeah, so I mean, I did ask the officers actually to do a few more things, but so if that, we're trying to fill that hole up, and you were talking about the number, Julia, because I'm really struggling with this, but elsewhere in here, when we're talking about moving stuff out of the reserve, we've got a bunch of money left over from the VAT.
Yeah, but not as much as we thought.
No, but whatever it is, can we do that first? Let's
We've
do that.
already covered that. I actually said
Yeah.
that automatically that should go in,
Yeah.
but unfortunately the number we were given 2 weeks ago is incorrect.
Maybe
But
it's
yes,
tuppence,
it
maybe
should
it's
go in
tuppence.
there.
Let's do that. And
My-
then I agree with Juliet, we need to know how big is this
The,
amount of money we've
the,
got to find?
the data, or the graphs you saw had already anticipated moving
Right.
what we were told 2 weeks ago, which was 116K. Tonight, I found out it's not 116K, it's 95K. So the 208K on the modelling line is the number that we have to hit, and it's now 230.
Just to note, that was to do with the full council resolution to allocate funds from that pot for the new system at Woodford Park Leisure Centre. So it was approved that would come from that pot. The transaction hadn't happened at that
Oh,
point.
right, so it's, it hasn't evaporated.
No.
We've spent it. Yeah.
So it's roughly 230K
We've got to find 230.
to, and this is where the complexity is. I assumed we were doing a 4.5% minimum retained general reserves. That number is 4.5 months, right? 559. That was my assumption. The recommendation is we should have it midway between 4.5 and 6 months, which is actually 652.
Yeah.
So that's really, it's nearly 100,000 more. So that 230K, if we do the 6 month, goes up to 330K we've got to find. Okay?
So would it be fair to say then that there will be a point to increasing the precept that we all say no further than that?
Yes.
And essentially
Well,
what we're aiming to do though is get it as low as we can. But so we need to kind of agree what is the highest precept, or you need to agree actually. 'Cause I'm
Well,
just
we
saying-
haven't, June, we haven't got to that. We're trying to do a process here.
Yeah, but it's, you can't just divorce one bit from the other, can you? I mean, that would be the level at which councillors felt we can't go beyond that. We can't ask people for any more than that. That's a useful thing to have in your head, isn't it? To start with, because when
It's
you
not as
start,
simple as that though, June, because say, for instance, you say it's 10%. then that leaves a shortfall. So then you've got to say, what are we cutting?
Quite. But I'm
And that's the
saying-
balance,
but
and
I'm
that's what
saying-
this
but
group,
if you're saying-
that's what this group will be.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that if you have that figure in your head, you know, that with the best will in the world, we genuinely don't think we can, you know, we get the cheap to go back and ask people for more than that. That helps
It's a start.
to constrain what you need to do, because then you know, well, in that case, that's going to generate that. So we've either got to find the rest of the money by increasing our income or cutting stuff. And then that helps you focus on that, doesn't it? Because
So
it helps. to
I
narrow the
would
target.
say
That's all
to
I'm
get to
saying, but
zero
if you-
with the new number, to give a reserve of 652, it would have to be a minimum of 15%, of which 2% of that will go straight into reserves, not into any facility, not into anything we're offering, purely to mitigate that risk. My own personal view, right, is that for this year and this year only, we go down the 559221, because I think that is doable, and refer to the steering, the 3 to 5 year steering group to discuss this.
How many months is that?
That would be 4.5 months.
4.5, yeah. I think just to quickly to note, in terms of that, the calculation that you're looking at there in the Treasury Management Report, you've got a range, which is a risk-based range. So I think the important thing is you've got an aspiration there in an area that you want to target. And obviously, if it moves one way or the other, as long as you're aware of where you are within that and make appropriate adjustments to bring that back to where you want it. Obviously, there is room to manoeuvre rather than it being a hard figure. It is a range within a risk.
Okay.
Well, for the past few years, we've actually kept the precept level, haven't we? But I think people get confused with these statistics. Most people want to know how much it's going to cost them a month, not 10%, 12%, 15%, because on the small amount that Woodley gets per household, just over £100 a year, 10% of that isn't really very much compared to 10% of Wokingham, which is 2,000 odd. So, you know, I think that people are more interested in actually how much money it's going to cost rather than actually a percentage. I think, you know, percentages seem to be, they blur things, don't they? They don't.
I mean, that chart is very useful. So if you go for, so that's 5, that's 10, that's 11.6. So if you went for 11.6%, that will be £1.04 a month.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, that means something else has to either give or grow.
Oh, I know, absolutely. Yeah, I get that. But I think there's stuff that needs to give.
Can I just ask, Chair, what does 15% increase look like in terms of pounds per month?
15% is £1.33 a month increase.
£1.33 a month.
£1.33 increase.
To be fair, all these numbers are small. And you know, if you've got a resident who's going to make waves over paying an extra £1.33 for what they get, but we all know our residents are fickle.
16 quid a year.
It's a household. You may have multiple residents in a household, but what Kay was saying, you know, about money being the important thing with this, if it's any consolation, now agree with that on the course that I went on, they were saying, don't at this level talk to people about percentages, talk to them about money, because then it's easier for people to work out value.
Yeah.
But to be fair, June, please, can you know, that's talking about how we present things. We haven't even got to an end date yet. We need to, you know, we have to make a decision by 10:30 on this, all right? So can we please focus back on the numbers, etc., rather than how we present things?
Yeah.
Okay, Robert.
Hello, Keith, thanks very much for listening to me. Kay was absolutely spot on with what she's just said. And I think we have to be mindful as a council, because if we said to residents, we're going to put up your council tax precept by 15 or 20%, there'd be uproar. But if we said we're going to put it up by the cost of half a cup of coffee from, Costa or another coffee shop, then it's more palatable. And I also think we need to think of the bigger picture.
Robert, sorry, can I stop? Robert, can I stop you? You're talking about how we present things. We need to get to an end point, and then we can talk about how we present it. I don't think we're going to have enough time to do it tonight, so I'm desperately trying to keep us focused on the numbers. And apologies, Robert, but we do
absolutely.
need to...
I absolutely, Keith, I do. But I also think we also need to bear this in mind, because it could skew how you come to that decision for this point. Okay.
I think everyone on this table will bear it in mind.
Can I just ask what our neighbouring councils are sitting at the moment?
More than us.
Right. Okay.
Significantly more.
How
we
much
have
more?
eaten into, when we first, going back to 2013, I think, when we took over, we were about 40%, 50% higher.
Okay.
We're now down to about 12 or 14%. It's much, much lower. They've been going up, we've been going flat.
So we are sitting below them, or we're sitting above them?
No, we're still sitting above. There is only one council of the 17 parish and town councils that had a precept that was higher than us, and would you believe it's Wargrave?
Okay.
All the rest are significantly, certainly the two towns.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm prepared to vote for scenario 2 on page 17 on the basis that the percentage increase is, in my view, palatable at 5.8. I support the idea of releasing the VAT reclaim to earmark reserves. And obviously we are mindful that in the appendix there is a list of potential budget savings and income generating schemes in Appendix 2 on page 40, which we have to take cognizance of. Now, I'm not sure whether tonight is the place where we start discussing in detail some of these reductions in budget or not, but the tangible subtotal is 38,600 in budget cuts, and we've got to generate an extra 38,000 in income, and the sources there are Oakwood Centre, Coronation Hall, Chapel Hall, and the Leisure Centre. So that would be where I've come from. I've done a lot of work on this, and I've kept very, very quiet tonight because the officers have done a superb job in presenting this information. I have challenged them in a number of areas, and I apologise I didn't copy you into this, Chairman, but I wanted the officers to answer me. I'm going to say this. I abstained on this decision on the Treasury Management's recommendations because I'm still uncomfortable with the level of general reserves.
Which way? Uncomfortable?
You think they need to be higher?
Higher or lower?
I think they're too high. If I was to go to my next door neighbour and say, your precept is going up by 5.8%, but actually we've got £600,000 sitting in earmarked reserves, which is, it's like saying to my neighbour, you can't spend £10,000 on your new car because you're sitting on 25,000 in your bank account. It doesn't square with me. I mean, I understand that there's a risk because the income generating from the leisure centre is not a given because, we never know from any one time whether people are going to stop using the gym. But I mean, I can't see that somehow. People have signed up membership to go to the gym and they're going to continue to go to the gym. And if we improve the facilities at the gym, that's going to enhance their experience and will generate more customer demand. If we're going to put money into the theatre, I'd like to think that will actually generate some income, but I'm still yet to be persuaded on that. But you
So
see,
you're making a proposal at 5.8 because we've got to start somewhere.
If you've got to start somewhere. If you want me to make a proposal, I'll go from scenario 2 with the caveat that I'm uncomfortable about the high level of reserves, because I'm going to find that very difficult to justify to my residents. You know, why are we sitting on £600,000 in general reserves? What's our precept? 1.2 million.
Can I just provide a bit of context to that? Yeah, you're right. In terms of the conversation and the view of the subcommittee, the investment subcommittee, is that taking that guidance from the joint practitioners, which is if you're 3 months, between 3 months and 12 months, larger councils should be nearer the 3 months, and that's what you'd expect. And that's what you would expect in a council that isn't as reliant on non-precept income as we are. So that's where the conversation was around mitigating that to some extent, of that being more towards the 4.5 or possibly higher, rather than just at the 3 months, which would be the absolute kind of lowest in the guidance. As I said, that is a range, and within that, there may be years where it's at the lower end of the range, years where it's at the higher end of the range, and you've got a target within that to keep to. One thing just for context as well, when we were talking with the internal auditor about the reserve levels, when it was higher and we were at 800 and something, though that was at the higher end of where you might expect it to be, the comment was that was not unreasonable given the scale of the council and its liabilities. That said, when we brought it down, we were targeting a figure much nearer 500. That was also acceptable in the context of having strong earmarked reserves for our buildings, for example, so that we, from a good governance perspective,
But
you were taking those things into account. So that's just for some.
Can I just sound out what Mike's points, what the others feel about Mike's points? You know, the precept, that sort of level, and the reserves not being up at the 600k. What do other people think? Because it's a start.
Personally, I think we've got to keep the reserves at least the $500,000 level. I don't know about 659. That would be 3 months in the event of anything untoward happening. We hope and we pray nothing untoward will happen, but it might do. We had it with COVID. We've got to keep reserves at a fairly high level. You've got to be able to cover at least 3 months expenditure of the council, plus redundancy and everything. And who knows what's going to happen to the energy costs. We've seen what's happened to them over the last year. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's your view? I'm going to be coming to you in video because we've got to push this on.
I sympathise with Mike, because I think having a big reserve, I'd like to see the reserve lower, and but I kind of am attracted more for the higher precept increase in scenario 3 with the general reserve at that level. It's showing 543, which is in keeping with what David is suggesting. But I do feel that it is time for our residents, to face a slightly larger increase, and we're talking low amounts per month. Personally, I think 9.75 is roughly where I'd want to be.
Yeah, I'm in the 9.75 camp. I think we need decent reserves. I would say that because I'm on that other committee, but I think we need to be aiming for more than 3 months. And I don't mind if we sit in the middle of that next band with a view to increasing it in the coming years. But, a pandemic was not foreseen. There is a very fragile, war-striven world out there. I think we would be foolish to not have a decent reserve. This is people's wages that we're talking about. You know, we need to be able to pay them for at least 3-4 months. And we need to, if the roof falls off, you know, we need to be able to manage that. And everything has become much more expensive. So I wouldn't want to go lower than we have intended. I'm happy to go a little bit higher, but I think we need to start with a decent amount of precepts. 9.75 seems sensible to me. I mean, we'll have to worry about the optics and how we do that, but that's for another day. But I do think that is part of a suite of solutions that is not going to get us there, and we need to not rely on this. We need to pull our finger out and do other stuff as well.
Alison, your view?
Oh, I just wondered what scenario 3 would look like if it also included the release of the VAT.
I think the
That should
release
be
of it, that's happening. It has to happen.
Sorry, that should be scenario 4. It was incorrectly labelled. Scenario 4, that is the difference between scenario 3 and scenario 4, is that scenario 4 has the release of the VAT in it. They were to show, those the two different impacts, yeah.
So
So it's
scenario 4 is modelling on 8.75%.
Plus the VAT.
plus the
plus
VAT.
the
So
VAT.
almost by releasing the VAT, you reduce the precept from
precept by-
9.75 down to
Okay. Right, got it,
8.75.
got it.
That's the only impact of that, almost that earmark reserve release. You could achieve pretty much the same outcome
1% different.
with, yeah.
Can I
But the
say-
general,
But
the general reserve has
only
gone
in
up.
only in the 3-year modelling that these scenarios do, not when you're looking at that first year. That there are obviously big differences, because the higher the percentage in year 1, the easier it is in the long run to keep those.
So
next-
that's just clarification.
Just the 3-year expectation slightly concerns me, because that takes us into a new council, which could be very different
Don't
councils
worry
with
about
different
the 3.
ideas, and us relying on
Alison,
those
do
people
not,
doing the same sensible steps.
don't waste your brain cells, because we've got a steering committee set up, a high-powered one, to look at the 3 to 5 years. We need to concentrate what we need to do for this year.
Okay.
All this is saying is the next couple of years is important, but we've got a committee that are going to work damn hard, I'm sure, all the right people to decide by next December, they should have a strategic plan for the next 3 to 5 years.
All I just add is that obviously mathematically, the more you put in the first year, the less you have to put in the other years. I know it sounds obvious, but if you start lower, then the next year's percentages are much harder than the other way round. So it's knowing that impact that's there. But
So can I have a clarification?
yes,
That's 626,721.
Yeah.
You say that's including the 95k now,
yes.
right? Does that also include the impact of the 300k loss for this year?
That is everything. Each scenario is
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Does that,
Yes.
so you don't have to take another 300k off that?
Oh,
Okay, fine.
Right, so
No,
I
that's good. Sorry.
support
That
scenario 4
that
then.
should be the end. That should be the end point. Yes.
Okay, so that one the one I support.
Okay, sorry.
I agree. I think the 9.75, I would have said 10%, is the best way to go. I think people appreciate the actual cost of living nowadays. They appreciate the fact that we give them good value for money. And I think that they would.
And they've had no increase for 3-4 years.
No, they haven't.
Don't worry about the optics. So I think it's universal around the 9.7. I'm saying around so that, because this is only the beginning of the process, they will come back with new data based on the 9.7.
Can I just add in that the scenarios that are presented there also take account of the savings set out in Appendix 2, so those recommended savings. So I
All
think
of them?
it might be worth, if you have a look at, let me just find the page.
So just
Page
say that
4.
again, Kevin. These numbers have got all of those savings built in.
The so on page 40,
Yeah.
the recommended, so that's the fourth column of numbers, that targeted 38,600 savings on expenditure and 38,800 increases in income are included in those scenarios.
Still going to find, we've still got, as I said in my presentation, we're still going to find 38,600 worth of savings as identified by the officers. And we as councillors can agree or disagree, we can chop and change, we can increase or decrease, but if we're to stick with that 9.75%, that's what we've got to go with. So if we chop and change those figures, then that's going to change the precept increase up or down accordingly.
Well, if we've collectively said 9.75, then it won't, that is not set in, we would be much, I think this group would be very disappointed if officers came back and said, well, we need 15%, because otherwise what we're doing here.
All of these reductions are perfectly doable. They're just, they're things that they're not risky. It's a decision.
Yeah, what we need is that consensus that if that's the way you want to go, that you're happy to.
But what I'm saying is it's not a guess. You know how much the subscriptions and things are for those. That is we could tangibly save 38,600 by doing those actions. It's not an if maybe. We could save that by doing those. The income,
But there is no, you've kept the income static, if that's correct.
Those income options in that recommended approach are all based on modelling that we have done. So there is, as we've discussed the theatre, there is a proposal on the back burner that I'm hoping if you go through this approach tonight and say these things, in January that will come forward, which shows those increases of income.
So Matt, just confirm to me that those speculative income figures are baked into those scenarios.
They are baked into those scenarios, and they're all based on things that we believe in-house we
can achieve,
should be able to achieve.
Yeah.
They are a pressure, they're a target, but we also understand that there are things we can do to achieve those. They're not unreasonable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think that some of the things, like the picnic in the park ideas, they were really successful for the public. They really enjoyed that sort of thing. If we cut all those things out, we're going to actually disengage once again from the public rather than, we can.
Just to say, I know we don't want to go into individual specifics too much, but the original budget that came to S&R had £10,000 for events, which included an ability to spend an extra £2,000 on that event and make it better this year. So obviously this savings that we're suggesting is saying reduce that level to more like what we spent this year. So it doesn't mean that event's cancelled, and we've got a budget to work within for all of our events. So it's not as clear cut as that. They're savings that we know we can achieve by tweaking what we're planning to.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good. Yes.
Can I just confirm? So you're not going to go through each of these lines tonight then? Because when I read them through, there were kind of options. So you're just going to wade them through all together, or?
But what I'll do is see what the committee want to do. If they're comfortable to sending the officers away to go and do that or work it up, because that's what they're looking for, guidance, collectively all of them, then we don't need to go down on the individual. If there's any individual ones there that somebody wants to say, hang a minute, I don't want to have any reduction in that area, then please speak now, because I think we've got a consensus on this. That's what I'm getting the feel.
Well,
please tell me.
If this is baked into the figures, if we don't do this, we have to find other savings.
Absolutely. So
simple as, isn't it? And I would trust that the officers have gone through this and picked off the low-hanging fruit. So if we don't do these, it's harder.
The intention of that report is to kind of set out, and it also explains there what we can't change. It sets out all of the opportunities and the maximum amount you could save. You could knock out annual grants altogether and save yourself 40 grand. You can do all of that stuff is laid out in that report. That recommendation was an attempt at kind of a starting point of saying these things seem like the lowest of risks, the lowest of impacts that would achieve the amount of budgetary improvements needed to therefore give you those scenarios.
And I will say with my strategic head on this feels like we're tinkering around the edges to get to a number, which we are. That might be fine for a year, but I would urge the committee when they do meet to think radically about our provision, because we need to stop doing things to make money.
Please, Minister, because it is important.
Can I just clarify? Stop doing things to
Well,
make
if
money.
you look at the losses, our losses are quite large. Now, I'm not suggesting we make money, we're not a money-making venture, but we have to break even at least. So, you know, this is great because this will get us to where we need to be, and it's tweakage. But next year there will also be tweakage, and there will come a point when there is no more tweakage to be done. So we will then need to think radically about our strategic intent and plan. So I would just urge whoever gets to make that decision not to tinker, but to think strategically for the longer term.
Can I just ask, Chair, if this is the point where we need to identify where we might have a problem with this list of savings, reduce the youth service 10,000, because at the last meeting there was a general consensus that the leisure colleagues would get together and discuss, because for me the youth service is really high profile for the town, and I'd like, before I agree to a 10,000 cut, I'd like to have more information about how damaging that 10,000 would be.
Can I clarify? I should have said this. Darren, the Chair of Leisure Services, has been in conversation with Darren and Ed, particularly on the leisure side, right? Talking about precisely these things. And what I would suggest, these are only guidance, right? It's not hard and fast.
Okay.
And anything that's related to leisure services, I believe the Leisure Services Committee, maybe they do it by email or whatever, discuss, because he's done a lot of work. I've got a copy of it, but I haven't absorbed it yet. Because it's so on that basis, these are only guidance. Okay, we may find some extra bits and pieces that says, do you know what, we don't have to do that, or we can only reduce it to 35.
Sure.
Bear in mind, it's only ever been 30k in the past.
Okay.
As well.
Can I ask one more clarifying question? The 26-27, just pick any of them. So pick reduced annual grants, minus 15k. 27-28, minus 15k. That means just hold it as is.
The same saving for a year on year. Yes, so it's not an extra 15 next year. Yes.
Okay. And how does that stack up against increased costs? Because if you look at the speculative one, that does increase because hopefully we're going to income generate more. But have you modelled that against potential increased cost, national insurance, wages, blah, blah, blah?
Yes, so the model, the financial model, the budget spreadsheet that's used to model on for years 2 and 3 is based on increases, RPI where we know it's RPI, or higher figures where Darren has in utilities that we know, water, national insurance, everything that we know that's running higher, those figures are counted into it. So entirely the figures you got on page 17 do model that through, yes.
So when we've looked at the recommended savings income, do we not think that we will have to increase those in 27, 28, 28, 29? Or are you saying that the added income is going to offset those, hopefully?
It's purely on the modelling of including those for a 3-year period, and you look at the outcome that you get on that page 17, it gives you an indicative figure of what percentage you might need to then achieve a figure of around £600,000 in your general reserve in 28-29. It's a bit of a future view to say that's, you know, gives you an idea of what might happen, but there's so many changes between now and then, it's, as Pete says, it's not worth getting hung up on, but yes,
thank you.
I've got a clarification, please.
Chairman, could I just make a comment on the point you made about it's only ever been 30k, but costs go up, and 30k 5 years ago, in real terms now, would be 38,400. So, you know, if
And the
we're
precept,
the same, we're cutting.
and the precept was about 240 as well. But you know,
putting the precept.
if collectively, the leisure services say that's very, very important, which I would expect them to do, right? But it's up to the leisure services to make that formal declaration, not this group. Okay?
What we will do is we will take back the redesign of the budget based on the kind of the indication here of what is palatable and present to leisure services in January a revised budget. If they feel that, and if we continue at that point needing to save that 10,000 and put 30 in, but leisure services decide they would like that to still be 40, then they also have other budget lines that they could tweak down and have a look at reducing to make that money up. So there is plenty of scope, even in that last sort of final budget meeting in January, to kind of tweak figures to get other bits where they would like it. There is still scope in that before it comes back to this committee for final approval. And we don't know what will happen between now and then in terms of this budget. If anything sort of changes and things are looking better for the end of the year, we might be able to look at some of those other areas and improve them as well.
And one approach, Yvonne, would be to, if you said that the 10K was unacceptable, which is perfectly fine, no, that's what we want to do, we might say, oh, in that case, then the annual grants will go down a further 10K to pay for it.
We just stop.
So we're saying the youth is more important than a ready bus, 15K.
Councillor Hoskin says the same.
Understand why putting the precept up by the cost of a postage stamp, first class stamp each month is going to, cause grief to anyone, and it would solve all of this,
Believe me, it does, I can tell you. I've been doing for a long time, and people, anyway, that's another issue. Robert?
Thank you, Keith. Yes, so I've been waiting for a while, so I might have forgotten some of the points I wanted to make. Juliet was spot on with what she just said. This council is very experienced with some incredibly knowledgeable people. I honestly can say I do not believe we have ever made the wrong judgment in spending money. Now, for example, going back to percentages, and I don't want to upset you, Keith, but if we put it up, say 10%, say we put up 10%, everybody's going to hate us because we've cost them 15 quid a year. If we put it up 15%, everyone's going to hate us because we cost them 20 quid a year. So let's make sure, really make sure we've got enough money to deliver what we've already agreed, to what our middle aspirations are. We're not going to go silly, and to make sure that we have a gainful employed council delivering services for the residents of Woodley. We've got the next, from a party political point of view, the next 15 months or so, 18 months or so to sell things and why we've done it. Yeah, we haven't had an increase for years. We've had to hit it big now for these reasons, and we will then be careful and judgmental in how we go forward. So I think we're talking about whether it's peas or jam. We need to be, we need to be sensible. So, but thank you.
Thank you. My point of clarification, because I'm interested in this, target increase income for Oakwood Centre, depending on theatre programme, 70k to 100k capital investment. Is that budgeted for, or is that going to come out of reserves?
No, that will come out of reserves. Which reserves it come out of will depend on what gets presented to committee. The aim is also, so again, it will depend on the report that goes in January. There is a hope that we can apply for grant funding, which will reduce amounts.
Worst case scenario is, what reserve will it have to come out of general reserve? So the 659 is actually going to be 559.
I'd have to have a brief look at the earmark reserves, because I think originally the report was originally written for the last SNR, we were actually looking at it coming out of, not out of general reserve. I think we were looking out of it coming out of an earmark reserve, but obviously
that's what I want. It's not out of general.
So the capital project report that you got at the last Stratton Resources had some smaller ticket items from building some facilities.
Rather than look it up now, can you take that away and let us know?
Give me a second, just for my brain to, no, it just takes a little second for my brain to work at the moment. Absolutely, yes, I can. There will be options as to which funding pot you want to take that from. You can take it from general reserve. There are definitely earmarked reserves that have money, but also there's other funding elements to include, like Weeble Park, that are coming up for consideration as well. So all of that will hopefully be presented together in January, so you can make a decision about all of the upcoming products in view of the whole picture.
At SNR.
But yes, at SNR. So you should be able to do that for the whole picture and understand what the impact on any of the reserves are and look further ahead of that, hopefully.
Because that increase is critical. If you don't have that investment, you're not going to get the increase, as you know.
The intention of the report was for that money to come out of already existing earmarked reserves,
Fine,
not
that's
the
fine with
general
me.
reserve.
That's fine with me. What was the other
Sorry,
thing?
can I just ask you a question
Yes.
about going back to youth services? You said earlier that all the recommendations, the officers believe them to be kind of doable and livable with. So just out of curiosity, the £10,000 we're talking about taking off of there, what would we lose for that?
So that's reducing that back down to the level that the 30,000 is the level it has historically been for that pot of money. The committee sat down and reviewed options from several providers and picked through. When that subcommittee met, it did it based on first of all, an idea of trying to hit around 30,000, but also knowing that, you know, if there was better provision, to not worry about that at that point, because actually at that point, the budget hadn't been considered. And looking at all their options, they found that they wanted, what they actually physically wanted to deliver next year would cost £40,004. So that's what went into the budget. They all knew that during the budget setting, there might be that budget changes and comes back down, in which case they'd have to review those options, and no commitments have been made at the moment.
So would they, I mean, you know, be able to express that in, we were hoping to do this, but now we all ditch that bit? Because I think that's
absolutely. I mean, for years. So again, not getting hung up on youth services, but the youth services haven't been provided since about 2021, and this year's the first year that we provided a number of those services. And for next year, that is based on pretty much carrying on the services that we've been doing for this 6-month period, and also augmenting them with another couple of options from another provider. So again, it's an option to consider, and there are, as Councillor Gilder well knows as the chairman, there are multiple options in there, and if the budget has to be squeezed back to what it was in previous years, they'll have to reconsider what that might look like. But we might not have to do that.
The real terms cut. We are talking about cutting, aren't we?
Well, I think we're talking about not adding from what you've just said.
Can we go through the chat, please?
Yeah, can I just ask you, on that youth service one, Matt, can you please include in your check places such as the National Lottery and the Postcode Lottery regarding grants we could possibly get from them?
Yeah, no problem.
Please.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think we're beginning. Alison.
Can we approach the Police and Crime Commissioner to see if there would be any grants? Because there's a lot of youth work which can help.
Got to do it quickly, because you want to
How long are they in for? Help young people do positive activities. And I think the PCC does have some funds for things.
So I think we're beginning to reach a consensus here. I've got a couple of things for you, Kevin and Matthew. Is please, can we break out the Oakwood Centre income from the Oakwood Centre and the theatre?
yeah.
Because we really do need to shine the light on, and you know this, because you and I have talked about it a long time. We need to shine that light on there to see, is it performing? Is it underperforming? What do we have to do? Because that is the one that is not sweated as a facility.
The business plan and that's been built around that we've been looking into does exactly that.
Yes, but in the
that
data that we
you can
keep
see on the
getting,
basis of the
we
programme.
don't have.
The reason it's not split out at the moment is it's treated no differently, and the information we've got on it is no different to any other physical room, and it's not treated like that. The changes that are being promoted will entirely necessitate that happens. So,
And my
yeah, it will.
second comment around the youth services. Yeah, I think you suggested that maybe we'll just continue doing what we're doing now. I think the Youth Services Committee and Leisure Services sitting on top of it, actually need to identify how effective it is. So I saw the numbers of the youth club that David said, and they're terrible, absolutely terrible. Doesn't surprise me because going back when we used to have a youth club in the old Bournemouth Schlitter Centre, they tailed off. Kids don't want youth clubs. So they must look. So if they've got 6 options and they can only fund 3 of them, don't automatically, the Youth Services Committee should not automatically say, well, we'll continue doing the ones. Which ones are most effective? And those are the ones we should be investing in and disinvesting.
So we look to leisure colleagues to guide us.
And that is absolutely the intention for that group to be able and required to review those. And that's been discussed and was agreed through
I think
the
it's
group.
merely to give it, because they've only, I mean, a lot of them, like the youth club, only started just in November. It's to give things the time they need to be tested and to check whether they're working or not. And I think the understanding from the committee and their opinion was that by the time you have to make a decision on funding things from April, they will need to continue things and give them a bit longer to run. But there's lots of options available, which is good.
And what I'm trying to do is stop what we've always done in the past, is saying, oh, we've done that, so let's keep doing it. We need to get a lot more looking at specific cost centres, specific facilities, and we have done it
That's
once.
what Juliet was referring to, yeah.
Juliet, before your time, we did it once. The lawn tennis courts we shut them down because they were only being used by about 4 people, and it was like a mini club. Nobody else could get in, and we shut it down. It wasn't cost effective. So we can do it. It's just a hard decision if we go down. Hopefully we won't have to shut anything in an ideal world.
I think we also, and I know this isn't the time to do this, but I just want somebody to hear it. I think we need to think about how we augment our services. I think we need to start to gather a group of volunteers that are Woodley volunteers, Oakwood volunteers, whatever you want to call them, because they're going to be able to run your theatre for you. They're going to be able to help support youth services. You know, there are people out there wanting to volunteer in different ways, and it's not an easy thing to do, as Mike knows, you know, to gather people. But if we start that slowly, in 3 years' time, we will reap the dividends of that, and we will be able to keep our staffing as is rather than having to increase it. And that will save us a lot of money. So there are lots of things that we need to do in parallel. And a lot of it is a bit about strategic thinking about how we're going to staff this.
I think it's a good idea. So I think we're coalescing, correct me if I'm wrong, around accepting your guidance.
Am I right in thinking that everyone was leaning towards scenario 3, which was the 9.75% with the recommendations in Appendix 2, but not taking the money from the earmark reserve at this point in time?
Oh, absolutely not. I
There's
think
no
that
need
would
to.
be- because that is storing up problems for the future.
Yeah, if we can do it without.
Have I collectively got that?
I think so, yeah.
Remember, it's guidance. It's still all guidance. It's not hard and fast. All right. So have you got what you need?
Just need a vote.
Kevin, you got yours? Darren, have you got yours?
A vote on that scenario 3 would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7-4. That's everyone. Thank you.
Right. Is there anything else on the agenda?
That is the end of that.
Thank you very, very much. It's been quite lively. And thank you, Mike, for your contribution.
That's good, the officers have got what they needed.
If you don't, let me know and then I'll bombard these guys, okay?
Save really time, we really not having to raise these council meetings tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, I reason I put it in scenario, do you know what, I think